Hello, and welcome to Film Slam Stream's post-film conversation for Nails. My name is Eric Siler, and I'm an instructor of film, media arts, communications, as well as moderator for this program. We're very pleased to be joined by the director of the program, Eliana Pipes. Eliana is from LA, and she's a writer, filmmaker, and performer. And she has worked on numerous projects and is currently working on a live action piece and doing a lot of writing. So hello, Eliana, and welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
It's great to have you as well, too. What a fun and delightful film. Can you just tell us a little bit about the inspiration you got from making this film?
Yeah, sure. So Nails actually started with a full-length stage play that I wrote. I have a background in theater as a playwright. And I was in grad school and I had written this full-length 90-minute play with the same premise about a girl whose fingernails keep growing to these ridiculous lengths because of this crush that she has on another girl. And then I got the opportunity to apply for a short film grant, and I thought to myself, that actually might work on the screen. And so I adapted that piece into a live action project. And the inspiration was really that I wanted to tell a joyful story about the intersection of queer culture and communities of color, particularly Black and Latino beauty culture, because fingernails are such a big part of Black and Latino beauty culture, and short nails are such a big part of queer culture. So that sort of contradiction was the thing that I wanted to explore the most.
Oh, very interesting. So, what led you to make it an animation? You could have maybe done a play about this or done a actual film. Why
Yeah.
animation?
So the journey to animation was a really, really long one. So like I mentioned, the piece began as a play. I applied for a grant to make the project as a live action short film. It was a 15-minute live action short concept. And I won that grant in January of 2020. And so the pandemic hit. And at first, we all had that sort of denial. We weren't sure how long it was going to go on. So I planned the project still as a live action project. We had a cast. I had put together a production crew, but it was like June of 2020. It still felt very unsafe to film. And we didn't have the resources to provide PPE at the level that would have made the production safe. And so it was really this moment where it was like, we either have to pivot and choose something else to do with this project, or it's going to die. And especially as somebody coming out of the theater, all my projects were dying. I was really determined that this piece was going to live on. And the suggestion came almost out of the blue from a mentor of mine, why don't you animate it? She was like, it's already so symbol driven. It's very visual. Just make it animated. And I was like, okay. I had never worked on an animated piece before. I had no idea what the process was like. And so it was really an adventure of just learning everything I possibly could about the form. And it took a long time. I started with having meetings with animation students, please just actually explain to me the process of how an animation works. I have no idea. So I learned a lot about how, what the sort of phases of production are in an animation. I had a friend from high school who was a visual artist, and I asked him to come on the project as our character designer. So I had a partner. And then just sort of step by step, putting one foot in front of the other, I embarked on the process. I reconceived the story from 15 minutes spoken to a 5-minute no dialogue piece, and storyboarded over 250 frames myself to get the process rolling.
Wow, that was very involved and very commendable to pivot like that. That was. So, what was the most rewarding or satisfying part of this entire process?
Ooh, I think it would have to be seeing the final product come together. Something about the way that animation works that, again, I had no idea about, was that the way that in a traditional production, you plan your shots, you film, you get the shots that you get, and then you put the movie together in editing. In animation, you sort of put the movie together first. It's like you make the bones of the film and then you add the animation on top of it. So you do that by making what's called the animatic, which is the storyboards that are cut together in the precise timing of the film. And the timing is really important because the animatic is what the composers use to make the score. The animatic is what the animators are matching when they work. So it's sort of like you have that animatic and it's like a really rough, ugly version of what the thing will be. But then shot by shot, as your shots get finished, the piece comes together and it's on exactly the same timeline, on exactly the same template. So getting to see what started as like my ugly little monster storyboards, then replaced by the beautiful work that our animators did, it was really gratifying to watch those shots drop in one by one. We had 60 shots in total. And just like by the time we were finished, it was really remarkable.
It was remarkable. Now, the story itself, I know you wrote this originally as a play, but the quinceañera, was this based on your own quinceañera? Did you have one or
I
friends?
actually didn't have a quince, so it was a little bit imagined in that sense. In the play version of the story, there was this big like conceit where it was like college, and it was like a university where you would go and like major in your identities, and you would like go to this college and like learn how to be your identity. And that was sort of like what the conceit sprung out of. And so as the project got shortened down further and further, it was like, well, what's going to take the place of that? Like what is a moment or a space where we sort of like learn our identities and take them on? And then a quince came up because it's such a perfect combination of a sort of cultural milestone that involves a lot of sort of like gendered things. You have your court, you wear the big dress, it looks like a wedding gown. And traditionally a quince is like the moment that a woman debuts for marriage, like she's on the market now. So it was a moment that I thought combined a lot of the things that the story needed to work. And then I was also really interested in the imagery. I think that there's a lot of Cinderella in this story. We have a fairy godmother, we have, you know, the big gowns and the dresses. Like I was thinking a lot about Cinderella, and I think that the setting of a quince also gave us a lot of visual opportunities to mirror Disney films and that sort of coming of age romance idealism.
That's great. So as well, first of all, I just want to say our education director, Gabby, said that this film was kind of like your quinceañera.
It kind of was. I didn't have one. So this is the quince that I have. It's the one I made myself.
Exactly. Now, when you wrote this, you know, it was absent of dialogue, you know, the music, you know, we followed the story, very easy to follow and understand and enjoy. Did these characters actually have names? Did you give them names and more identity? So I guess what I'm asking, what's missing from the animation that was in the play? Give us some extra information.
Yeah, a lot of stuff, honestly. So our characters do have names. The lead is Catalina and her crush is named Serena. And because the project unfolded in the way it did, we had cast actors for the live action version. And they were so fabulous. It breaks my heart a little bit that we never got to see them in the roles, but like they were so incredibly talented. We did a number of table reads together. And at first I was like, ah, man, like lost cause. I'm so sad that we can't bring any of that forward. But then when I brought on my character designer, he actually used the actors that we had cast as inspiration for the character designs for the animation. So a lot of the bones of that original project did actually get to come through. And in terms of the dialogue, whew, that was really tough for me as a playwright, especially. Like dialogue is so much of what I do. And so to take every word of it out was a real challenge, but I'm so happy to hear that it felt like the story still came through. And I will say I feel like a lot of the sort of creative invention and innovation in the piece really came out of the restrictions of our budget. The reason that it became a no dialogue animation is that dialogue is very expensive to do in animation. It's much more difficult to animate a character articulating words. It would have created a lot, it would have demanded a lot more resources than we had to give. And so that was one of those things where it was like, okay, we can't afford talking, so there's no talking. And then another thing in the piece is there's that convention where there's sort of boxes around the characters. And visually, that was exciting to me because it feels sort of like a graphic novel almost. There were sort of visual references that excited me about it. But another reason why we did that is because when you have the character in a little box, you don't have to buy a background. Like background art is another one of those things that's expensive to do. So the more we could box our characters in, the fewer backgrounds we had to pay for. And that was another one of those things where the budget sort of forced us to be innovative, but it also, I think, added so much more meaning because then we get to see her literally step out of this box.
That's some really good insight that you shared with us. I'm sure our audience appreciates that, especially those who are interested in animation. The story itself, when you wrote this story, what was your intention behind it? I know you want to tell a lighthearted story, but what did you want viewers to your audience to walk away with, since it was originally a play? And what did you want your audience to walk away with now that it's an animation? Did that change? Did those two goals change?
Ooh, I think the goal did really remain the same for me in terms of impact. I'm really passionate about telling universal stories through the culturally specific lens of the communities that I come from. And as like a Black, white, and Puerto Rican queer woman, I really wanted to bring that story forward, an intersectional story, particularly with women of color. I think very often there's sort of like a representational gap where, often in stories about queerness, we're not really centering characters of color. Sometimes in stories where we are centering characters of color, we're not really centering women. Like it's not characters that I think we get to see very often. And so I was really excited to sort of put the spotlight on characters like Catalina and Serena. And then also I really love comedy and I love lighthearted storytelling. I think there's something really wholesome about the story. And so I think what the story does for me is that sort of like lift at the end where we see them accepted by community. We get our like love story realized, our couple is together. I think that sort of like heartfelt lift is really what I wanted the audience to walk away from. I wanted a little pep in the step and a smile.
Well, that you certainly did. Which character did you identify with the most, Catalina or Serena?
I think it would have to be Catalina, probably just because she's the lead. But I think my favorite moment in this story is the one where they're in the hallway and there's a shadow behind them. And in the shadow, you can see that Catalina's nails aren't there. It lets you know that it's just a figment of her imagination. But all that Serena sees is that her crush is like rearing back from her. And I think our animator nailed it. She looks so sad. She looks so sad in that shot, and my heart breaks for her. And I will say in the play, we get a lot more expansion into Serena. And it turns out that in the play version, Serena had her own thing. Like the way that Catalina was seeing her nails as an obstacle between the two of them, Serena had something with her hair where she was like, you're getting all tangled up and that's why you keep running away. And so like, it was really a reflection that everybody has their own thing. Like everybody has that insecurity. And being a teenager, I feel like also is so much about, something that makes you feel like a superhero one day can make you feel like a monster the next. And in the play, when we had 90 pages and all that space to explore, we got to give a little bit more of a spotlight to each of those characters. And I would love to get to expand the piece again one day and give more of that space to Serena.
Great. I would love for you to do that as well, too. Now, the title of your piece, Nails, is there any more meaning to the title besides the actual, fingernails?
I think it is just, I never thought about that before. That's such a good question. I think it is just nails. And then we have the little Spanish punctuation, which sometimes I feel really bad about doing because I know it's the improper use. But those exclamation points actually became part of the visual language of the film. There's this sort of like, as Catalina is performing her culture and trying to fit in and do the right thing, they turn into these little progress bars that show sort of like how well or how poorly she's doing. It's like a video game. And so it started as just a sort of like, this is going to let people know that it's Latin-y and there's characters of color and also that it's about nails. But then again, they've sort of turned into something that was part of the visual language of the film.
I see. But with that, I and maybe viewers can, go beyond the intended meaning, such as, your nails break and just like live things happen and you try to make adjustments. Your nails grow, you bite them, and you grow them, and so forth, color them, and so forth. Like you color your nails. We saw them ahead of time. I don't know if you want to show everyone your nails.
Little pink and purple today. I don't usually do colors like this, so I'm feeling a little exposed. But yes, I went pink and purple for this week.
That's really nice. So, but it's just it's like a way of self-expression with that, going beyond the title with that. So besides this, what has the response been to the film? Have you shown it to at a number of festivals? You told me before we started. How has the response been?
Oh, the response has been really lovely. Nails has shown at 8 festivals and counting so far, which is really exciting. And again, this piece was made during COVID, and our team was actually entirely remote. I think it was a team of 14 from composers, choreographers, animators, and we were across the country. So half our team was in New York. We had folks in Georgia. We had people all over the place. And so the process of making the film was so communal. We were all really on the same team. Our group chat was great, but we didn't really get to watch it together. We never got to sort of share space and, hear each other's reactions. It's so different to sort of experience a film with other people. And so the film premiered at Outfest in the summer of 2022. And that was the first time that I ever got to hear it with other people. And like the audience gasping and the laughs and the awes. And it was so just really a dream come true to know that the moments that I hoped would land would land. And there was also something so interesting about, the project is built on some sort of specific references in Black and Latino beauty culture and in queer culture. And not everybody who comes to the film comes in knowing those things. And the film will teach you, will let you know, and it tells you sort of it instructs you about those pieces of culture over the course of the story. But it was also so delightful knowing the people the people who came in knowing. And from the minute the nails grew, they knew exactly where it was going. It was really gratifying to know that the film could work on those multiple levels. For people who do know the context, it rings on a whole different level than for people who are learning as they go.
Yeah, exactly. You did that so well. And another thing I like about the film was that how positive it was. Oftentimes we see films that, touch on subjects about, people and so forth, that there's this negative vibe to it and someone's trying to overcome something. But here it's just about coming of age, just something that, young people go through and they worry about it. And it wasn't that didn't have that negative aspect at all. It's just like, let's just see where this goes and I can relate to this. So,
I really appreciate that. And one thing that's really important to me is, I really appreciate what you said about there are a lot of stories about oppression and struggling where it sort of feels like you're watching your protagonist just kind of getting beaten down.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're somebody who shares identities with those characters, even if they make it out okay, it can be really hard to go through the piece sort of feeling those feelings for yourself all over again.
Right.
And so in this piece, I was really interested in focusing on the internalized part of that oppression. Nobody in the film ever shakes a stick at Catalina. Nobody ever tells her, you can't do X, Y, Z. She doesn't experience any bigotry externally. It's about her internal struggle and her internal conflict, because I think that, while it's not always possible to silence those external voices that are oppressive, what we can do is accept ourselves and love ourselves. And so I think that's where I really wanted to focus, because I think that's where the film can really have the biggest impact, is if somebody can walk away feeling a little lighter within themselves.
Absolutely. So, what's next for you? I mean, what's your encore now after this successful film?
Yeah, I'm a playwright, and so I'm working on plays. I'm also a screenwriter, so I'm working on screenplays. But I'm also so excited to be working on my first live action feature, or short, my goodness, not a feature, that was very generously funded by a grant through the Colin Higgins Foundation and Outfest, where the film premiered. So there's a new project in the works. I'm really excited to be getting to work in live action. This is like my 2020 redemption, the piece that I thought I was going to make. It's not going to be Nails. It's going to be a slightly different project. And I'm also sort of picking up the Nails project again, but as a musical. So I'm going to see where that goes. Musicals are very difficult to do. Musicals tend to have like a 10-year development timeline. So I guess I'll catch you in 2033 with the Nails musical on deck. But I'm really excited to be continuing to work on the project.
That sounds very exciting. So one thing you left out, any thoughts about making Nails into actual live action film, which
I think it would be interesting. Part of me kind of thinks that it couldn't. Part of me thinks that the things that I cut in terms of dialogue don't need to be replaced. Like, I almost do think that this animated version is the best short version it can be, but who knows, maybe I'll surprise myself. And thinking back, I gotta say, it is so funny to me that my plan A was to glue 3-foot nail extensions onto a person. How was that plan A? I'm sure it would have worked and we would have found a way, but like, oh my goodness, I think that the animation might just be the right version of the story, but who knows? I've been surprised before.
It might be. That's the attitude to have. Just approach things with an open mind and, adjust as needed. Eliana, it's been such a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for joining us. I wish you all the best and continued success.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And thank you for sharing the film.
You're welcome. And thank you to our audience for joining us for this important and invigorating conversation. For more information about upcoming Cleveland film festivals, please visit us at clevelandfilms.org. I'm Eric Siler. Thank you.